She could almost hear the sound of Ty's voice, low and steady, the way he always spoke when he was comforting her. "It's okay, Amy," he would say. "We'll figure it out together." For a moment, Amy stood still, letting the wind tug at her hair, listening. And then, just as she thought the moment might slip away, she felt it, a brief but unmistakable shift in the air, like a quiet breath passing through the barn. It was as though Ty's presence had surrounded her, as if he were right there beside her. She opened her eyes slowly, almost afraid to look. But as she did, she felt a wave of peace settle over her. It was as if Ty was there, not in body, but in spirit. His love, his support, it was still with her, as strong as ever. The ache of loss didn't disappear, but in this moment, it softened, allowing her to feel the warmth of his love without the sting of grief. Amy smiled softly, a tear slipping down her cheek. She wasn't sure if it was the wind, the ranch, or her own heart playing tricks on her, but it didn't matter. In that brief moment, she knew that Ty was still with her. It would always be a part of her, and that was enough. "Thank you," Amy whispered into the evening air, her voice barely audible. "Thank you for everything. I'll keep going. I'll carry you with me always." The camera pulled back slowly, leaving Amy standing there at the threshold of the barn, bathed in the fading light of the sunset. She was no longer the young girl who had once stepped into this world full of uncertainty. She had grown, she had loved, she had lost, and she had found the strength to keep moving forward. And as the wind whispered through the trees, it carried with it the promise that Ty's spirit would never leave. No matter how much time passed, no matter what came next, Ty would always be part of Heartland. And so would she. The evening had settled into a peaceful quiet, the kind of calm that only Heartland could bring. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting its final rays across the ranch, painting everything in a soft amber glow. Amy walked toward the house, where the faint sound of laughter echoed from inside. She could smell the familiar scent of dinner cooking, a hearty meal that would bring the family together, just like it always did. Inside, the atmosphere was warm and welcoming. The table was set, and everyone had gathered: Jack, Lou, Tim, and Lyndy, all sitting around the table, sharing stories, jokes, and the kind of conversation that only family could have. The bond between them was unspoken but strong, a thread that held them all together. Even through the hardest of times, as Amy stepped into the room, she couldn't help but smile. There, at the center of it all, was the family she had fought. For the family that had fought for her, had been through so much together: loss, heartache, change, but they were still standing, stronger than ever. The feeling of unity and love that filled the room was undeniable. In this moment, everything felt right. Tim raised a glass of water as Amy walked in, his voice loud but filled with affection. "Well, if it isn't the lady of the hour," he said, a grin on his face. "We were just talking about you, Amy. You've done something special with this place, and don't you forget it." Amy laughed, feeling the warmth of his words. She moved to the table where Lyndy scooted over to make room for her. "You've done pretty well yourself, Tim," Amy replied, settling into the seat beside her daughter. "Everyone has. This place wouldn't be the same without all of you." Lou, who had been quietly watching the exchange, added with a smile, "It's not just about the ranch. It's about us. We've built something together, and no matter where we go or what we do, we'll always have each other." Amy's heart swelled at Lou's words. She had spent so many years focused on keeping Heartland alive, keeping everything together, but in moments like this, realized the true strength of their family wasn't just in the land or the ranch. It was in the people who had come together to protect it, to nurture it, and to love it. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, but Amy found herself lost in thought, her gaze drifting over her family. The laughter, the shared stories, it was what kept them going. What made this place home? Even in the hardest times, they had found a way to move forward together. They had been through more than most families could endure, but here they were, standing strong, side by side. She looked at Lyndy, who was talking animatedly to Jack about a new horse she'd been working with. It was incredible to see how far her daughter had come, how much she had grown. Lyndy was the future of Heartland. But in many ways, she was already a part of it, just as much as Amy, just as much as Jack. Tim raised his glass again. "To Heartland," he said, his voice steady and sincere. "To family, to home, and to everything we've built together." Amy's eyes filled with tears, though they were tears of gratitude, not sorrow. She lifted her glass in return. "To family," she echoed softly. "To Heartland, and to the future." The family clinked their glasses together, the sound ringing through the room like a promise. It wasn't just about the land or the ranch, it was about the people who made it what it was. It was about the legacy they were building together, one moment at a time. As Amy looked around at her family, the bond between them felt unbreakable. They were not just a family, they were a team, each person bringing something unique to the table, each person a vital part of Heartland's story. And together they would continue to carry the ranch forward. No matter what challenges lay ahead, the camera lingered on Amy's face, a look of quiet contentment crossing her features. For the first time in a long while, she felt at peace. Heartland was in good hands. Her hands, Lyndy's hands. Jack's, Lou's, Tim's, and together. They would face whatever came next. The last of the daylight had finally faded, leaving behind the soft, quiet glow of the moon. Amy stepped outside, leaving the warmth of the house behind her. The air was cool now, with just a hint of autumn creeping in. She wrapped her arms around herself, the night's chill a stark contrast to the heat of the day. Yet in this moment of solitude, the stillness of the ranch felt like a comforting reminder of everything that had brought her here, and everything she was now ready to face. The fields stretched out before her, the silhouette of the barn looming in the distance. She could hear the soft rustling of the trees, the sound of the wind moving through the leaves. It was the kind of quiet that only came when everything was right, when everything was where it needed to be. And yet, the world was always changing. Time moved on, seasons shifted, and life carried on its relentless course. Amy took a deep breath, letting the cool air fill her lungs. She had learned to embrace change, to accept that it was a part of life. But that didn't mean it was always easy. Her heart still ached when she thought about Ty, about the life they had built together, the dreams they had shared. It felt as though a piece of her would always be missing, a part of her soul that would never fully heal. But in that absence, she had also found something powerful at resilience, strength she didn't know she had. She turned toward the ranch house, her eyes drawn to the windows that glowed warmly in the night. The family was inside, safe and together. They had been through so much, and yet they had never given up, and neither would she. Heartland was more than just a place. It was a legacy. A legacy of love, of perseverance, of family. And it was her responsibility now to carry it forward. Taking another breath, Amy slowly walked toward the edge of the ranch, her steps quiet and deliberate. As she reached the small hill overlooking the fields, she paused, gazing out at the land that had shaped her entire life. It was beautiful, as always, but tonight it felt different, more alive, more present, as though it were a living, breathing part of her. "Heartland will always be home," Amy whispered to the night.
Yes.
"No matter what happens, it will always be here in my heart, in our hearts." The wind picked up slightly, tugging at her hair, and for a moment, Amy closed her eyes, letting the feeling of the land surround her. It was as though Ty's presence lingered in the air, his love still with her, still guiding her, still part of everything they had built together. She could almost hear his voice, steady and comforting, whispering through the wind. "You're stronger than you think, Amy," she imagined him saying. The words as clear as if he were standing right there beside her. Amy smiled softly. The weight of his absence still present, but no longer as overwhelming. She had learned to live with the grief, to make space for it, and to honor Ty's memory without letting it consume her. He had been the love of her life, and he always would be. But now, she had a future to build, a future for herself, for Lyndy, for the ranch, and for the family who had stood by her through it all. The future was uncertain, and that was okay. She didn't have all the answers, but she had something more important: hope, and with that hope she was ready for whatever came next. Amy turned back toward the ranch house, her gaze fixed on the light shining in the windows. She could see the silhouettes of her family gathered around the table, sharing laughter, love, and life. It was a simple scene, but it was everything. It was what she had fought for. It was what she would continue to fight for. With one final look at the land she loved, Amy made a silent promise to herself and to the ranch. She would carry the legacy of Heartland forward just as she had been taught. She would honor the past, cherish the present, and build a future that would stand the test of time. Heartland will live on, she said, her voice firm but filled with love. As the sun sets over Heartland Ranch, the winds whisper the stories of a family that has fought, loved, and grown through every storm. In this emotional final scene, the legacy of Heartland is not just in the ranch itself, but in the memories that live within its walls, the horses that walk its land, and the hearts of the people who call it home. In this moment, Amy Fleming faces the future with the same courage she's always had, embracing both the beauty of the past and the uncertainty of what's to come. The soft golden light of the setting sun cast long shadows over Heartland Ranch. The air was calm, carrying the scent of grass and hay, a gentle reminder of the land that had been a part of Amy's life for as long as she could remember. She sat beside Jack on the old wooden porch of the Heartland house. The rocking chairs creaked slightly as they settled into the silence, the only sound being the distant chirp of crickets and the occasional rustling of leaves in the breeze. Jack, with his usual quiet wisdom, looked out at the sprawling land before them, his face etched with the years of hard work and love he had poured into the ranch. He turned to Amy, his voice soft but steady. When I first came here, this place was just a dream, but you've made it real. You and your mother, you both brought life back to Heartland." Amy glanced at him, her heart full of emotion. She had heard Jack's words before, but today they felt different. She had been through so much since then. The loss of Ty, the struggles, the growth. She had stood on the edge of despair more times than she cared to count. Yet here she was, stronger than ever. "I never imagined Heartland would become what it is today," Amy replied, her voice quiet, almost reverent. But it's not just the horses or the land. It's everything we've built together, everything we've been through. It's the family." Jack nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. He knew what Amy meant. They had all been through so much, and each of them had left their mark on Heartland. But he also knew that, like him, Amy had always been the heart of the ranch. Without her, it wouldn't be the same. "Your mom would be proud of you," Jack added. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with the weight of love and loss. Amy felt a lump in her throat. It had been years since her mother passed, but the pain of losing her still lingered, like a shadow that followed her everywhere. "I miss her," Amy said quietly, staring out over the land. "I miss everything we used to do together. Feels like there's so much she didn't get to see, so much I wanted to tell her." Jack didn't need to say anything. He simply sat there with her, letting the silence speak the words they both needed to hear. Time had a way of healing wounds, but some scars would always remain. Yet, in the quiet of this moment, Amy realized something important. She wasn't alone. She had her family. She had Heartland. She would carry her mother's spirit with her, just as she had always done, as the sun dipped lower in the sky. Casting its final rays of light across the ranch, Amy felt a sense of peace settle over her. Heartland was more than just a place. It was a living, breathing part of her. Of all of them, Jack's voice broke the silence again, softer this time. "You've come a long way, Amy. The future's in your hands now." Amy looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude and determination. Wasn't sure what the future held, but she was ready for whatever came next. She had made it this far, and with her family by her side, she knew she could keep going. "Whatever happens," Amy said, her voice steady, "Heartland will always be home. And I'll always be here, carrying on what we started." The camera slowly pulled back, capturing the peaceful scene, the fading light of the sun, the old barn in the distance, and the quiet strength of two people who had seen it all. Amy and Jack sat side by side, not needing words. It's just the bond of family and the ranch that held them together. The house was quiet now, the evening settling in around Heartland. Amy walked slowly through the halls, her fingers brushing against the familiar wooden frames of photographs that lined the walls. Each photo told a story, moments of joy, sorrow, growth, and love. But today, Amy's mind wasn't on the past. It was on the letter she had found tucked away in a drawer earlier that day. A letter from Lyndy, her daughter. It had been folded neatly, and as Amy sat down at the small desk in her room, she unfolded the paper carefully, almost as though she were handling something fragile. The letter felt like a bridge to the future, a connection to the next chapter of Heartland's legacy. Lyndy's handwriting was neat and familiar, and as Amy began to read, the words seemed to fill the room with warmth. "Dear Mom," the letter began, "I don't know where to start, but I want you to know that I'm so grateful for everything you've given me. I don't think I could ever thank you enough for raising me here at Heartland. I remember when I was little, I would watch you and Ty work with the horses, and I would dream about one day being just like you." Amy's heart tightened as she read the words. She had always tried her best to be a good mother to Lyndy, to pass on the love and knowledge of Heartland that had been passed down to her. She had hoped Lyndy would understand the importance of this place, the way it had shaped her into who she was. But seeing the words written down, hearing them come from Lyndy's heart, it made it all real in a way that nothing else could. Lyndy continued, her words growing more personal. "I know things haven't always been easy, Mom. We've had our struggles. And I've had my own fears about the future, but I've learned so much from you. You taught me to be strong, to stand up for what I believe in, and most of all, you taught me what it means to love this land, to love Heartland." Amy paused. For a moment, her fingers gripping the edge of the letter. She could almost hear Lyndy's voice in her mind, as if she were sitting right there beside her, speaking these words aloud. The sound of it, the sincerity of it, made Amy's chest ache with emotion. She had always known that Heartland would be passed down to the next generation, but hearing Lyndy's words filled her with a sense of peace. The ranch wasn't just her legacy, it was Lyndy's too. The letter continued, "I know things will change. We're all growing up, and life will take us in different directions. But no matter where I go, I'll always carry a piece of Heartland. With me, I'll carry the lessons you taught me and the love you gave me, and I'll always be proud to call this place home." Tears welled up in Amy's eyes as she finished reading. She had always known that Heartland was about more than just horses, more than just a ranch. It was about family, about roots, about the way a place could shape you, could make you who you were meant to be. Lyndy's letter was a reminder of all of that. Reminder that the next generation would carry the torch. Amy held the letter to her chest for a moment, the weight of it settling deeply into her heart. The future might be uncertain, but she knew one thing for sure: Heartland would continue, through Lyndy and beyond. It was in the hands of the people who loved it, who believed in it, who saw it for what it truly was, a place of healing, of growth, of love. With a soft sigh, Amy stood up and walked over to the window. She looked out at the ranch, the familiar shapes of the barn, the fields stretching out before her. It was hard to put into words how much Heartland meant to her, how much it had shaped her, but she didn't need to say anything. The land, the ranch, and the people, it was all there in Lyndy's letter. The legacy was alive, and it was moving forward. Amy smiled, wiping away a tear that had escaped her eye. "Thank you, Lyndy," she whispered. "Thank you for reminding me that we're all part of something bigger, something that lasts." As she folded the letter back up, Amy placed it carefully in a drawer, a symbol of the future she was now facing with new strength. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she was ready. Heartland had always been her home. And now, it was Lyndy's too. The quiet of the ranch was almost sacred as Amy stepped away from the house and made her way toward the barn. The sky had deepened into shades of purple and orange, the colors of twilight. The ranch seemed to breathe. With her, a living entity that held all the memories of her life, her childhood, her growth, and the moments she had shared with Ty as she walked along the familiar path. The crunch of gravel underfoot felt comforting, as though every step was bringing her closer to something she couldn't quite name. She had been here so many times, yet tonight it felt different. Tonight, the air felt thicker, heavier, and as Amy reached the barn, she stopped for a moment, standing at the entrance, her eyes tracing the silhouette of the building. There was something about the barn that always made her feel connected to the past, a place where time seemed to stand still. It was here that she had worked with Ty, shared their dreams, and built their life together. It was where they had fought their hardest battles and celebrated their greatest victories. And even though Ty had been gone for years now, Amy could still feel his presence in every corner, every memory. Her heart tightened as she thought of him. The grief, though it had softened with time, still lingered in the quiet moments. In the spaces where words couldn't fill the emptiness he had left behind, Ty had been more than just her husband. He had been her partner, her equal, her rock. Losing him had shaken her to her core, but over time she had learned to keep going. To carry his memory in her heart, standing there in the twilight, Amy closed her eyes, letting the silence wash over her. And I will carry it with me, always. The camera pulled back slowly, capturing Amy as she stood there, resolute and strong. Her silhouette framed against the vast, quiet expanse of the ranch. The future was uncertain, but Amy knew one thing for sure. She wasn't alone. Heartland was with her, and it always would be. The night had settled deep around the ranch, casting a blanket of darkness over everything except for the soft, warm glow coming from the windows of the house. Inside, the family had long finished dinner, but the conversation was far from over. The kitchen table was a hub of quiet chatter, each person lost in their own thoughts, but also connected by the undeniable bond that kept them together. Outside, the ranch stretched out endlessly, as if waiting for the next chapter of its story to unfold. Amy had stepped back inside after her moment alone, but her mind was still on the fields she had just left behind. She stood in the doorway of the kitchen for a moment, watching her family, her heart full. She felt a quiet shift inside of her, a sense of something deeper, something bigger than she had ever realized before. "Mom, you okay?" Lyndy's voice broke the silence, pulling Amy back to the present. She turned and smiled at her daughter, who had noticed her lingering in the doorway. Amy nodded, her smile gentle but meaningful. "Yeah, just thinking about things, ... The past, the future, ... The ranch, about everything that's brought us here." Lyndy didn't say anything at first, but her eyes were full of understanding. As much as Amy had given to her, it was clear that Lyndy understood the weight of what was to come. She was growing up, and while she would always be a part of this place, there were other paths ahead of her. And Amy knew, with a sense of quiet certainty, that it was time for the next generation to carry the torch forward. Jack noticed the moment between mother and daughter and smiled, though it was tinged with sadness. He had seen so much change over the years, from the first day he arrived at Heartland to this moment where his family was gathering around, stronger than ever. But the ranch, the legacy of it, would continue in ways he could only imagine. And he was content with that. "Your mom's right," Jack said, his gravelly voice breaking through the quiet. "Heartland is more than just the land. It's the people who live and work here, and that's what makes it special. We've all put something into this place, and it's a part of us whether we're here or not." Tim, who had been quietly listening, raised his glass once more. "To family, to the ranch, and to what comes next," he said, his voice rich with emotion. There was something about Tim's simple words that resonated deeply with everyone in the room. It wasn't just a toast, it was a promise. A promise that Heartland would live on, not just in the land, but in the hearts of all those who had been part of it. Amy looked around the table, at the faces of the people she loved. Each of them had their own story, their own connection to Heartland. But they all shared the same belief that this place was more than just a ranch. It was a legacy. And now, it was time for her to pass it on, as she looked at Lyndy, sitting across from her with a small but determined smile on her face. Amy realized that the future was already here. The next chapter of Heartland's story wasn't something to fear, it was something to embrace. Lyndy would carry the lessons of Heartland, just as Amy had. And Amy, in turn, would carry the love and wisdom of those who would come before her. "I know things won't always be easy," Amy said, her voice steady, but filled with a quiet strength. "But I also know that Heartland is bigger than any of us. And as long as we stay together, we'll keep moving forward. We'll honor the past, and we'll build a future that's just as strong." Lyndy stood up and walked over to her mother, giving her a warm hug. "I'm ready, Mom. I'll carry on what you've started. Heartland will always be home, and I'll make sure of it." The room fell into a comfortable silence, and for a moment, the only sound was the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. The future was uncertain, but the bond between this family, the bond between Amy and the land, was unbreakable. There was no question that Heartland would continue to thrive as long as the love and the legacy remained. Amy watched her daughter, feeling the weight of the past and the promise of the future in her heart. She knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of a new chapter, one where the story of Heartland would live on, in ways both new and familiar. The land, the horses, the people, none of it would be forgotten. It would be carried forward with the same love, strength, and resilience that had always defined Heartland. As Amy turned back toward the window, looking out at the fields bathed in moonlight, she made a silent vow to herself and to the ranch. Heartland would live on. Through her, through Lyndy, through the family, and through every person who had ever walked its grounds. It was a legacy that would never fade. It was a legacy that would always endure. And as the camera slowly pulled away from the house, the ranch stood there, quiet and steadfast, bathed in the light of the moon, just as it had always been, and just as it always would be. The night was deep now, with the stars scattered across the sky like tiny diamonds, each one a quiet reminder of the countless memories that had been created at Heartland. The ranch stood tall in the distance, the barn and fields bathed in the soft glow of moonlight, while the house behind it hummed with life. Inside, the family had settled into a comfortable silence. They had shared their stories, their laughter, and their hopes for the future, and now there was nothing left to say. Amy stood at the window, gazing out over the land. The familiar view stretched before her, every inch of it a part of her history, part of who she had become. It wasn't just the barn, the horses, or the house. It was everything. Every tree, every rock, every piece of earth beneath her feet. It was home. And it always would be. The wind picked up once again, moving through the trees and carrying with it the scent of the earth, of the life that flourished here. Amy closed her eyes for a moment, letting the feeling of it wash over her. She could hear the sounds of Heartland, the rustling leaves, the quiet murmurs of the horses in the stable, the distant calls of birds settling for the night. It was the sound of life, the sound of love, the sound of everything she had worked so hard to protect. She took a deep breath, and in that moment, something shifted inside her. The grief she had carried for so long, the weight of the loss of Ty, didn't feel as heavy. It was still there, like a scar that would never fully heal, but it no longer consumed her. She had learned to carry it, to live with it, and to honor it without letting it define her. And now, she could feel the presence of the people who had shaped her life. Ty, her mother, Jack, Lou, Tim, and even the horses. They were all here, in the very soil of Heartland, in every breeze that touched her face. They were a part of her, and they always would be. Turning away from the window, Amy moved quietly through the house, the warmth of the fire still flickering in the hearth. She passed by her family, each person wrapped in their own thoughts, but united by the same bond. They were there, together, under this roof that had witnessed so many moments of joy, sorrow, and everything in between. And it would continue to do so long after they were gone. She walked to the front door and stepped outside, letting the cool night air greet her. The world seemed so still, so quiet, yet full of possibility. The ranch had always been about more than just survival. It had always been about love, about healing, about building something that would last. And that was what Amy intended to do, carry the legacy of Heartland forward into the future, just as Ty would have wanted, just as her mother had. Amy stood on the porch for a long while, looking out over the fields. She could hear the horses, Stirring in the distance, their soft whinnies, a gentle reminder that life at Heartland would never stop. There would always be challenges, always be moments of uncertainty, but there would also always be love. Love for the land, for the animals, for the people who walked its earth, and that love, along with the lessons of the past, would guide her and her family. Forward, Heartland will always be here, she whispered to the night. We'll always be here. And with that, Amy turned back into the house, her heart light, knowing that the future, though unknown, was filled with hope. She wasn't just carrying the past. She was building the future one step at a time. Heartland's story wasn't over. It was just beginning again. The camera slowly pulled back, showing the silhouette of the ranch bathed in moonlight, the sound of crickets chirping, and the soft breeze rustling the trees. The legacy of Heartland would continue, passing from generation to generation, with love, strength, and resilience always at its core.